social search and reputation convergence. One of the underlying themes here has been some of the risks and rewards of some of the new dynamics and channels. And I'm excited to have James Morse, Vice President of Product Marketing at SoCi. We talked about this. SoCi. So phonetic spelling is my expertise. So James, come on up and enlighten us. I'm looking forward to this one.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll tell everyone, I pace when I talk. My wife absolutely hates it, but we're just going to kind of deal with it. Let's see if I can get this guy working. Will you show this on one of the screens? 1 minute, okay. Okay, my name is James Morse, as they mentioned. So I oversee product marketing for SoCi. We really work with multi-location brands on search, digital search, social, and reputation. So we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to hit on a little bit of AI search just because that's a topic that we're obviously going to pull through from the past 2 days. And we're going to talk about the impact of where our audiences are when it comes to AI search and how really social and reputation pull into this. We'll wait for these guys. Okay, great. I don't even know why I waited for this. This is clearly a title of a presentation that was created by marketers that means absolutely nothing. Leveraging cross-channel synergy for exponential reach. So if you're wondering what that means, I'm also wondering what that means, but I think it means search, social, and reputation. So we're going to kind of dive into this. Now, I honestly hate starting any sort of talk like this, presentation like this, with a negative, but we've heard it over the last 2 days, so we're just going to kind of keep pulling this through, which is that traditional search demand is down, and this isn't hypothetical. We're all feeling it. You all raised your hands during the last one about how big of a priority it is for AI search because you're feeling this pressure of this being down. If you've been in a room with CMOs this year, if you're a CMO yourself, one of the biggest challenges that they keep talking about is this search demand being down. You're not getting the phone calls for the business that we heard about last time. And we're witnessing this perfect storm. You see that Google's perceived quality is ultimately eroding. And I'll talk a little bit about that. I'm not saying that Google's going away. Honestly, if I was to put money into who's going to win this AI race, I think it's going to be Google, but that's neither here nor there. You have this quality that's being perceived as eroding. User trust is weakening. And we're seeing behaviors shifting very quickly. We have older generations that are still defaulting to Google, so no judgment if you're one of those in the room, that's fine. But younger consumers are skipping straight to generative AI like ChatGPT, or even social platforms like TikTok and Instagram. These apps are really becoming new front doors for discovery. We see that Search Engine Land said that 42% of people say that Google's becoming less useful. The subhead on this actually reads that users are relying on their community for information rather than Google. A lot of that probably resonates with you. If we think about this in financial services, this shows up as people asking LinkedIn groups for advice on maybe which robo-advisor to choose, or even scrolling through client testimonials on Facebook, or even polling their peers in private Slack and WhatsApp groups. That's actually exploded. So we're seeing that desperation, that need for trust through personal stories and peer recommendations more than just general search content. On the other side, early in 2024, so just last year, Gartner predicted that search volume would drop by 25% by 2026. This seemed absolutely preposterous to us if you worked in the industry. At the same time, I kind of equate this to, if anyone follows John Mulaney, like pre-rehab, he had this great sketch about signing a 30-year mortgage with his now ex-wife and how far off that seemed. Like, that's just simply unbelievable. If you did it today, it'd be 2055. Like, that just seems so far-fetched to us. This is how we felt as marketers. Like, that's never going to come. But what once felt like that distant horizon is just a couple of months away. But what's actually more shocking is that this wasn't just a gradual trend to 2026. We saw this as a collapse in motion over the past year and a half. And so it's no longer just about preparing for next year. We had been preparing for this all along. So if your institution is still relying on Google alone, you're ceding that 42% community-first audience to your competitors that are active on TikTok, Instagram, financial service forums, AI assistants, whatever it may be. So expanding beyond this search is no longer really traditional search, is no longer just a nice to have for us. You have to keep pace with the providers who are meeting prospects where they'll eventually go for trustworthy advice. And I'll keep hitting on that because I think everyone in this room wants to be viewed as trustworthy. Now, over a decade ago, probably a little bit longer if I'm being honest, the average consumer spent about 4 hours a day on media. And we found businesses through newspaper. I hate to have Yellow Pages up here, but it was Yellow Pages. And more often than not, just word of mouth. Now, we spend over 12 hours a day in media. And if you think about this, this seems preposterous, but it's actually pretty right. I wake up in the morning, my alarm goes off. I'm not a snoozer, so I just open it up. I check some form of media. For some reason, I think that people are just going to post a lot on Instagram overnight. They never do, so I'm just doom scrolling on there. I'm checking email. I'm doing all of these things. I get ready for the day. I take my son to school. I come home. I work. And then I pick my son up. My wife and I get him down. And then we watch TV. I'm doom scrolling while she's watching Love is Blind right now. That's my day. So 12 hours is probably pretty accurate. And I'm finding businesses in new ways, right? I'm finding it through, obviously, online search. I'm finding a lot through maps and navigation apps, and I'll kind of talk about this a little bit. You find it through social media. You find it through streaming. Even more critically, when you think about this, even as yourself as a consumer, this feels very fluid to you, right? You're hopping between Google, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, sometimes all within the same hour. This is a seamless experience for you, but for us as marketers, for us as brands, this is very fragmented. It's really hard to understand the customer journey. So instead of really finding businesses, we're now discovering them as we scroll. So the job of the brand has to be present during this fluid flow, hopefully at all points. Now, 1 in 3 hours of the media is spent in social media alone. So on average, consumers spend over 3 hours just scrolling Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, WhatsApp, you name it. Even more within social is that people hop between these platforms. You go to Instagram for visuals, you go to Facebook for community, you go to TikTok for trends, you go to YouTube for how-tos. So for us, we can't just be in one app. You can't just say, hey, I'm in Facebook, I'm killing it. That just doesn't work anymore. At a corporate level or even at a local level, you have to show up in all of these. Obviously, that's a huge challenge, but it's a huge opportunity because it means for us who get that right, then we can capture that attention of the consumer in that entire block of time. Now, our research shows that 97% of consumers discover new products, services, or businesses using social media. They'll stumble upon someone, hopefully your brand, maybe a competitor, while they're scrolling, or they'll see friends and colleagues talking about an experience. The point that I really want to make here is that social just isn't a nice to have. You can't just rest on your laurels of, I've been on Facebook for the past decade, this is checking the box. It's where people are finding new banks, they're finding new advisors, they're finding new insurance products. If your institution isn't in the feed sharing insights, if you're not sharing client stories or timely rate updates, you're effectively invisible to customers at the moment that they're open to discovery. And I'm going to keep saying that word a lot, invisible, because that's really the focal point if we think of the digital landscape today and where you want to be. You want to be visible during all parts, but if you're not in most of them, you do become invisible. Now, last year, we saw something really surprising. About a quarter of consumers now use social media sites to look up local businesses. We've gotten so used to search, but Gen Z, and it wouldn't be a conference if we didn't talk about AI and Gen Z, so Gen Z and younger millennials, social's really become that search bar for them. If they want to find a local restaurant or even an advisor, they'll often type that into TikTok or swipe on Instagram first. Now, I fall into this younger millennials category. I'm really not sure if I'm proud of that or not, so everyone give me your judgment afterwards. But nonetheless, my wife was recently looking for a travel credit card. So we live in Cleveland, Ohio. My wife doesn't travel much for work. She's a speech therapist, but her sister, who lives in Portland, Oregon, had a baby a week ago today, first baby they had. So my wife's been planning a lot of visits, much to my demise and chagrin for this, but she's been planning a lot, so she asked me for a travel credit card recommendation. Now, I do travel a lot for work, and I'm always on YouTube looking for some new device that does 3 things instead of 1 that I can make packing a little bit easier for my life. So my YouTube algo has gotten really sensitive to travel things, and I always see those travel credit card hacks. That's the first place we went when she asked me. Now, if you told my financial advisor that, I think he'd flip out that that's where we went. But that's where we're now going as consumers to find information. It's not just Google search. It's not necessarily just ChatGPT or a deep research model. We're going to these social platforms because we want to hear the advice from others. And while this type of behavior caught us off guard initially, if I'm anything of an indicator, we can see how this is going to quickly become the norm. When we plot out even our platform usage for local search, we still see that Google leads with over 80%. So I'm not here to say that Google's going away. Again, if I could put my chips somewhere, I put it in Google's because I think they're going to win this AI bet. They have all of our data and information. But overall, we see this over 80%. It's down from previous years. When we look at social networks, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, they've grown to become the second biggest share. And more importantly is that these AI chatbots poured onto the scene this past year more than ever. So even though this 83% using Google seems dominant, it's weaker than it used to be. And social and AI tools are climbing quickly. As we continue to plot this over years, we expect to continue to see this growth and even see kind of Google bifurcate a little bit in their offerings in this way. So again, this really means that you're now competing against three front doors: search, social, and AI. Now, Gen Z's rewriting these rules. They have to. It's just what they do. Our research found that 18 to 24-year-olds use an average of 3.6 platforms before deciding on a single purchase. That could be Google, then a deep research model, then YouTube, then Instagram. They jump around until they feel confident. They're twice as likely as our older cohorts to use social media sites for business searches, and then 40% of all consumers now turn to social media at some point when researching local businesses. This platform diversity, again, while natural to them, feels very fragmented. So we have to stitch these together to ultimately stand out. Now, I do want to zero in a little bit for financial services. We see that 80% of consumers for financial services start their journey online, phone, laptop, before they ever call an advisor. I don't think that's really shocking to anyone in this room. That makes sense to me, at least. We see that mobile queries for financial advisor have jumped 75% in the last 2 years. So what you're seeing here is that shift in younger generations starting to enter this market and how they search online. On top of that, I really bolded the wrong one for this. It's 1/3 of consumers say they turn to social media for advice, and for Gen Z, the number increases to 76%. So if you're only optimizing for Google, you're missing huge swaths of intent that live online, especially as these younger generations enter the market more. Generation Alpha is going to be a completely different game as well. Now, I want to build on this because I don't think it's helpful to just kind of give you like, hey, this is the shitstorm we're in. Like, what do we do about this ultimately? So I want to zoom in a little bit on this. So as we think about local visibility, it's really mission critical. We see that half of all searches have local intent. So every time someone in your market looks for an advisor, a branch, or even an insurance quote, they expect to see you. On social media, the posts that ultimately win the most engagement are those tied to a specific community, whether it's a city's chamber of commerce or even a client story from a local branch. And nearly every one of those potential customers, we see that even 98%, will read reviews and let them guide their decision. I'll hit on reviews a little bit today. I could talk for hours about it, and I think that's a big piece that most of us ignore. But local marketing's really become this new battleground for customer acquisition. So if your business isn't showing up consistently in the map feeds, review sites, or really even the social content, again, you're invisible. So we want to turn these kind of data points into a seamless presence. So I built this out into 4 quick pillars to hopefully make this easy. I honestly would have done 5, but it just didn't fit on the slide well. So the first one's just really localized search, social. So when you share content, again, tied to a community, it could be even from a local perspective, sponsoring the local high school field hockey team, whatever it may be, we see that engagement spikes because the consumers recognize this is my town, this matters to me. On the SEO side, this question comes up a lot. Like, do I really need to care about SEO if agents are just coming to my site? Do I really care if no one's coming? Do I have to follow the same rules? The answer to that is yes, absolutely. It still has to be fast, mobile friendly. You still need structured pages on this for the right schema. So search engines and AI assistants can find you and understand your offerings. The third pillar is really the review side. So it's not just about star count. That's what I consistently hear. Like, hey, I've got 40 reviews. They're average, bless you, 4 stars. But the last review was 3 years ago. You have to care about recency, volume, and meaningful responses to those reviews. They all play a role. Fresh, positive feedback tells consumers and even the search engines that the provider's active and they're trustworthy. And the fourth, which is the one I should have split out a little bit, is organic content and social proof. Client stories, how-to articles, even local news tie-ins, every piece of content that you publish feeds back into search results, map listings, and AI overviews. And we heard last, the AI overviews is a huge piece. So each of these pillars alone is helpful. If you're sitting here thinking, man, I'm not doing any of these, one's great, but really you need all four. If you're just doing one or two now and you continue to just do those one or two, you're going to see diminishing returns over time. So hopefully this becomes a roadmap for being seen, trusted, and chosen. It's not all obviously rosy for brands that ignore this shift. We're seeing a huge decline in brand loyalty. Our consumer behavior index shows that a double-digit decline over the last year alone. Branded search volume's down, we know that year over year. Even more striking is that 7 out of 10 customers will abandon a brand that isn't locally accessible or doesn't respond online. So if you're not meeting customers where they are, it's not the old days where they'll stay with you through a couple of hard times. They'll simply go find someone else. So without the type of four-pillar approach I outlined, you end up surrendering market share to competitors who are more visible. So with search being fragmenting, social becoming this new search, and younger cohorts really mixing platforms, it means that the old rule book for marketing kind of has to go out the window. Optimize for Google, maybe post occasionally on social when you have an intern over the summer. That just no longer applies. We have to have this interconnected approach that spans all of these touch points across search, social, AI, reviews, maps. If you stick to that single channel, you're only going to see diminishing returns. So I do a recap slide real quick. This is the one, if you're going to take a photo of it or if you need it after, this is the one that kind of gives you the takeaway. But again, traditional search is fracturing. We see that we're rewriting the rules for this. Brands have to expand upon this search engine into those social feeds, maps, chatbots, and wherever people look for recommendations. I want to stop here real quick because this is a constant question I get. Is like, how do I know where they're looking? One, I'm up here, you can partner with Sochi, we can do that. Or you can simply ask them. If you go and look for surveys, how did you hear about us? Those haven't been touched in a decade. Most of you in the room probably haven't even seen your company's survey for this. It's asking outdated questions. Get specific about this. If you have new customers coming in, you want to know where they're searching, how they found out about you, or where they looked in the process. Maybe they are looking at Reddit. Maybe they're looking at social, TikTok specifically. Ask those nitty-gritty questions so you can get to the bottom of it. And then ultimately, we have to evolve with these channels where they're spending their time. And again, that's where we have to ask those questions. And as Gen Alpha comes onto the scene, that's where we're going to need to evolve these questions and make sure that we're meeting not just our existing customers where they are, but where our prospects are. Now, if we look at today's search results, I said, I don't think Google's going away ultimately. We're seeing a really weird shift. We're seeing rich cards, videos, images, social mentions, and AI pop-ups. If you're using even Google for their AI overview, it's super helpful. What I'd say is AI got really good, really fast at answering questions. I was doing some research last week. I usually use a deep research model for these types of things, but I still will go to Google if I kind of question it. I went to Google a handful of times, and I only had to scroll down past the AI overview once to validate. This is how good this is getting. And again, pretty soon we will be in this world of a zero-click result. We'll get the answer right there, and we'll never need to visit a website. So this means ranking for those top 10 blue links is no longer enough. You have to earn placements in those rich elements that you see on Google or whatever search engine you're playing in. It's the images, the videos, the schema-powered cards, and ultimately feeding those AI engines that surface answers directly. If your brand's not structured to appear in these new formats, again, you're going to be invisible. Even within the search results, we see that younger consumers are craving authenticity. They want real stories, real experiences, and validation from people, not just your brand's static page. Gen Z's no longer just relying on that single source. We saw that. They're looking at 3.6 different areas before they make any sort of purchase. They check a brand's Google rating, they then scroll through TikTok videos, and maybe they ask ChatGPT along the way. If they don't see peer validation, like unfiltered reviews or user-generated content, they move on. And if you think about your own marketing, how many of you probably have some sort of just stock photography of people? I love this, especially if you look at signing a mortgage. It's always the same kind of style couple. Consumers recognize that. They know when that's happening, especially in a local atmosphere. They want to see people who look like them, who are similar to their community, and don't just seem like repeat stock photography. That's where you're starting to get that user-generated type of content and those authentic stories. Even on our own platform, we see this shift. We see that overall search impressions are down 10% year over year. If we zoom into the back half of 2024 up until today, those impressions have dropped 18%. So these aren't just blips. That's a common thing I hear. This is just a blip. This is a small trend. This is not. These are industry-wide signals that customers and consumers are splitting time across other channels that we haven't been prepared for. Now, all of this fragmentation and search decline, it's not a death knell. It becomes this opportunity. If we can pivot now, we'll own the attention of tomorrow's consumer. So when we look at why search is breaking, I want to talk about those concrete steps that can help us a little bit more specifically. I do want to zero in on financial services, because if we look at that drop, we see that it's been 17% year over year. Again, not a blip. Signals fewer people are turning to Google. In practical terms, this is almost 2 out of every 10 consumers aren't seeing your Google listings anymore. So you have to shift those resources to where they are so that you localize your presence and build out that social and AI strategy so that you're meeting them where they're continuing to go for this type of information. Now, if we talk about how we win in this space, I kind of want to break this out in just 3 pieces as well. Again, you can't really search everywhere optimization is how I think about this. You can't stop at Google. You have to live in all of those spots that we've talked about. You have to apply the appropriate schemas to even your local websites. At an enterprise level, you're probably doing a great job with this, but even if it's just adding financial service to every branch and product page, adding FAQs to those different product pages. If you're insurance and doing, let's say, home insurance and auto insurance, having FAQs on each of those pages written in a human-first way so that those are pulling into the AI overviews. And then making sure that you're flowing all of your information through Google Business Profile, Apple Maps even, plugins that you have, or even chatbots that you offer. We've seen banks and credit unions pick up nearly entirely new lead resources just by simply syncing that same clear, accurate information across multiple profiles. Second, you've got to build trust and credibility. Nearly all customers, again, are reading reviews before choosing a financial provider. So making it effortless for them. I used the snowplow company last winter that was the first time with these guys. Every time they came out, I then got a request to add a review on Google, on Facebook, whatever it may be. And I did. Each time I did, they were killing it. I didn't want to snowblow. So this is a fantastic service. Doing the same type of piece where you're automating short, friendly messages after, let's say, account openings, or you've got a loan closing, and then responding in line with them in a real way, in a fast way. Don't just let those reviews sit for a month and then try to respond to them all at once. You've got to respond in time. And then the third is obviously positioning for these AI recommendations. We've been talking a lot about this over the past 2 days, but the future of discovery is AI agents, not these typed queries. So to earn a spot in these answers, you need clear signals of experience, expertise, authority, and trust. So publish genuine case studies or client stories, link to reputable industry resources, and keep your compliance and privacy pages up to date. On the technical side, I mentioned implementing those FAQ page markups so that you get those popping up in those AI responses. Overall, I know this is a lot. I'd say that it's hard to do if you're not doing some of these things today, but I don't want you to be overwhelmed. I truly believe that the marketing leaders of 2026 won't have the biggest teams, they won't have the largest budgets. They'll be the institutions that really do treat AI as part of their core staff, having an on-demand workforce that scales when and where you need it. That means reallocating potentially some of your traditional SEO and content budget into AI-driven workflows, automatically generating and updating localized content, managing listings without manual intervention, and monitoring even those social channels in real time to engage with prospects and clients as conversations happen. If you do this thoughtfully, if you pair AI tools with clear guidelines and, of course, human oversight, you'll outpace your competitors who are still dependent upon spreadsheets and just monthly updates. By making AI your multiplier, you'll deliver fresher, more relevant information across every channel and always stay one step ahead. With that, I appreciate your time. If you have questions, we'll be next door. Grab us. Let us know if you need anything. Thank you so much.